Admiral Helena Vance stood on the bridge of the TSS Constellation and watched the stars burn. The Korath Nebula stretched before her like a wound in space, filled with purple clouds and dying light. Somewhere in that beautiful hell, the enemy waited. "Admiral, the Valanthi fleet has taken position on our left flank," her first officer reported. Commander James Chen was a tall man with tired eyes. They were all tired now. 3 years of war did that to people. Helena nodded and looked at the tactical display. Little blue dots represented human ships. Green dots showed their allies, the Valanthi. And the red dots, spreading like a disease across the screen, were the Wraith Collective. The Wraith were nightmares made real, a hive mind species that consumed everything in its path. They did not negotiate. They did not trade. They only fed. When they had declared war on the Galactic Concord 2 years ago, every species in the Alliance had answered the call. But it was humanity that had bled the most. Helena remembered the day the Valanthi had first contacted Earth. She had been a young captain then, commanding a small patrol ship near Mars. The Valanthi vessel had appeared like magic, sliding out of faster-than-light travel with grace that human ships could not match. High Regent Sithrax himself had come to Earth. He was tall for his species, nearly 3 meters of scaled muscle and ancient wisdom. His eyes were gold, and when he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "We have watched your species for some time," he had told the United Nations Assembly. "You are young, you are rough, but you have something rare in this galaxy. You have fire in your hearts. We would be honored to call you our little brothers." Little brothers. The words had seemed kind then. The Valanthi had shared their technology with humanity. They had helped humans build better ships, better weapons, better medicine. They had sponsored humanity's entry into the Galactic Concord, vouching for the young species when others doubted. And when the Wraith came, the Valanthi had fought beside humanity on 100 worlds. Helena pulled herself from the memory and focused on the present. Today was the day everything would change. Today, the combined fleets of humanity and the Valanthi would crush the Wraith Armada once and for all. "Signal from the Valanthi flagship," the communications officer announced. "High Regent Sithrax sends his regards and confirms his forces are ready." "Tell him we're honored to fight beside our elder brothers," Helena replied. It was the traditional response. The Valanthi loved their traditions. The battle began an hour later. The Wraith came out of the nebula like a swarm of insects. Thousands of ships, each one a twisted mass of biological material and stolen technology. They did not fly in formation. They did not follow tactics that made sense to other species. They simply attacked. Human and Valanthi ships met them head-on. Plasma cannons lit up the darkness. Missiles streaked across the void. Ships exploded in balls of fire that lasted only seconds before the vacuum snuffed them out. Helena commanded her fleet with cold precision. She had learned long ago that emotion had no place in battle. There would be time for grief later, time for rage and sorrow, but not now. Now there was only the fight. "TSS Montana is taking heavy damage," Commander Chen reported. "They're requesting permission to fall back." "Denied. Tell Captain Rodriguez to hold the line. We need every ship in position." It was a hard order. Helena knew it might be a death sentence for the Montana and her crew, but the alternative was worse. If the line broke, the Wraith would pour through and flank the entire fleet. The battle raged for hours. Human ships died by the dozens. Valanthi vessels fell as well, their elegant hulls torn apart by Wraith weapons. But slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. The Wraith were breaking. Helena allowed herself a small smile. They had done it. All the sacrifice, all the blood, all the fallen friends. It was worth it. The war would end today. "Admiral," the communications officer said, his voice strange, "we're receiving an encrypted transmission from the Valanthi flagship. It's not using standard protocols." Helena frowned. "Can you decode it?" "No, ma'am. It's not meant for us. It's directed at the Wraith fleet." The words hung in the air like poison. Helena felt something cold settle in her chest, something that felt like the beginning of understanding. "Get me a visual on the Valanthi fleet," she ordered. The main screen shifted. The green dots that represented their allies were moving. But they were not moving toward the Wraith. They were turning, slowly, deliberately. Their weapons were charging. Their weapons were pointing at the human fleet. "No," Helena whispered. "No, no, no." The first shot came from the Volanthi flagship itself, a massive beam of energy that cut through the TSS Freedom like a knife through paper. 3,000 human sailors died in an instant. Then the entire Volanthi fleet opened fire. Helena screamed orders that no one could hear over the chaos. Her ships tried to respond, but they were caught completely off guard. Their shields were facing the wrong direction. Their weapons were aimed at the Wraith. They had trusted their allies completely. That trust killed them. The TSS Montana, the ship Helena had ordered to hold the line, exploded in a ball of flame. The TSS Beijing, the TSS Cairo, the TSS Mumbai. One by one, human vessels died under Volanthi guns. "Return fire!" Helena commanded. "All ships, return fire!" But it was too late. The human fleet was scattered and confused. The Volanthi had planned this perfectly. They knew exactly where every human ship would be, exactly when their shields would be weakest. A Volanthi beam struck the constellation. The ship shuddered and groaned. Alarms screamed. Crew members were thrown from their stations. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, someone shouted. "We're losing atmosphere." Helena grabbed her command chair to stay upright. On the view screen, she watched her fleet die. Ships that had fought beside her for years. Crews that had trusted her to lead them to victory. They were being slaughtered. "Get us out of here," she ordered. "Emergency jump." "The drive is offline," Commander Chen replied. His face was bloody from a cut on his forehead. "We're not going anywhere." Another hit. The lights flickered and died, replaced by the red glow of emergency power. Helena could smell smoke and burning circuits. "How many ships do we have left?" she asked. Chen checked his console with shaking hands. 47. We started with over 400. 47 ships. 47 out of 412. The rest were debris, scattered across the nebula like fallen leaves. A new transmission cut through the static. A face appeared on the main screen, scaled and golden-eyed. High Regent Sithrax looked at Helena with something that might have been pity. "Admiral Vance," he said, "I wish it had not come to this." "You murdered them," Helena spat. "Millions of people. They trusted you." "Trust is a weakness," Sithrax replied calmly. "Humanity should have learned this lesson long ago. You are a young species. You do not understand how the galaxy truly works." "Why?" Helena demanded. "We fought beside you. We bled for you." "Yes, you were useful." Sithrax tilted his head in what Helena had once thought was a gesture of affection. Now she recognized it for what it was: contempt. "The Wraith offered us a deal, your territory in exchange for peace. We calculated the cost of continued war against the benefit of your friendship. You came up short." Helena felt tears burning in her eyes, not from sadness, from rage so pure it felt like fire in her veins. "You will pay for this," she said quietly. "Every last one of you." Sithrax laughed. It was a cold sound, like stones grinding together. "You have 47 ships, Admiral. We have thousands. Earth has no allies now. The Galactic Concord will not intervene. They never do. You are alone and you are weak, and you will accept your fate with dignity. That is my hope for you, little brother." The transmission ended. Through the shattered view screen, Helena watched the Volanthi fleet pull back. They did not bother to finish off the remaining human ships. They did not need to. The message had been delivered. Humanity had been betrayed. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of limping through space in broken ships, burying the dead in the cold void, counting the cost of their allies' treachery. 17 million humans had died in the Battle of Cygnus Prime. 17 million sailors, soldiers, engineers, medics. Sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, friends and lovers. All of them gone in a flash of Volanthi weapons fire. Helena did not sleep during those 3 weeks. She could not close her eyes without seeing the ships explode, without hearing the screams over the radio. She stayed on the bridge, watching the stars and letting her hatred grow. When they finally reached Earth, the news was worse than she had feared. The Velanthi and the Wraith had already divided human space between them. Colony after colony had fallen. Billions of humans were now under alien occupation. Only the Sol system remained free, surrounded by Velanthi patrol fleets that watched and waited. The Galactic Concord had issued a statement expressing concern about the situation. They called for calm and dialogue. They did nothing. Helena was called before the United Earth Council to give her report. She stood before the leaders of humanity and told them everything. The betrayal, the massacre, the cold calculation in Sithrax's golden eyes. When she was finished, the chamber was silent. President Maria Santos, an old woman with steel in her spine, looked at Helena with ancient eyes. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" she asked. Helena thought of the dead. She thought of the ships burning in the nebula. She thought of Sithrax's laughter. "We remember," she said. "We rebuild, and we make them pay." The president nodded slowly. "And how long will that take?" Helena met her gaze. "As long as it takes. A decade, a century, 1,000 years. It doesn't matter. We are human. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we never, ever give up." There were tears in the president's eyes, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Then that is what we will do." That night, Earth broadcast a message on every frequency. It reached the Velanthi patrols. It reached the Galactic Concord. It reached every species in known space. The message was only 2 words, but they carried the weight of 17 million dead. We remember. In the days that followed, the Velanthi celebrated their victory. They divided the spoils of human space with the Wraith. They congratulated themselves on their clever strategy. They mocked the foolish humans who had trusted them. High Regent Sithrax addressed his people from the throne room of his palace. "The human threat has been contained," he announced. "They are trapped in their home system, powerless and alone. In a generation, they will be forgotten. In 2 generations, they will be a footnote in our histories." His advisors nodded and praised his wisdom. His generals boasted of their easy victory. His people celebrated in the streets. None of them noticed the human ships retreating to Sol. None of them wondered what was happening behind the patrol lines. None of them imagined that a species so young and so weak could possibly pose a threat. That was their first mistake. Admiral Helena Vance stood on a hillside in Japan, looking up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, the Velanthi patrols circled like sharks. Somewhere up there, the ships of humanity's dead still drifted in the nebula. A young officer approached her. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka was barely 25, but she had the eyes of someone much older. She had lost her entire family in the massacre. "The Council has approved your plan," Tanaka said. "Full mobilization. Every resource. Every person. Everything we have." Helena nodded. "Good. They're calling it the Remembrance Initiative." Tanaka paused. "Some people think we should try to negotiate, sue for peace, accept reality." Helena turned to look at her. "And what do you think, Lieutenant?" Tanaka was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was cold and certain. "I think they should have killed us all when they had the chance." Helena almost smiled. "Almost." "Yes," she said. "That was their second mistake." She turned back to the stars. The Velanthi were out there, celebrating their victory. The galaxy was out there, content to let humanity die in silence. They all thought the story was over. They were wrong. Helena remembered Sithrax's words. "You will accept your fate with dignity." She remembered his laughter. She remembered the contempt in his golden eyes. "No," she thought, "we will not accept our fate. We will forge a new one, in fire, in blood, in the cold certainty of human revenge." The Velanthi had taught humanity a valuable lesson. Trust was weakness, mercy was foolishness. The galaxy did not reward kindness. It rewarded strength. Very well, humanity would become strong, stronger than the Velanthi could imagine, stronger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. And when the time was right, when they were ready, they would return. Not for revenge. Revenge was too simple, too brief. They would return for everything. Helena spoke quietly to the stars, her words carried away by the night wind. "You betrayed us in war. You took everything we had. Now we will take everything you own. Every ship, every planet, every credit and grain and dream. We will strip you bare and leave you with nothing but the memory of what you did to us." She turned and walked back toward the lights of the city. There was work to be done, plans to make, a species to rebuild. The Valanthi thought humans were defeated. They thought the story was over, but for humanity, it was just beginning. 10 years passed in silence. The Valanthi patrols circled the Sol system like patient predators. They watched Earth through long-range sensors. They monitored human communications. They reported back to High Regent Sithrax that the humans were broken and quiet, licking their wounds like a beaten dog. They could not have been more wrong. Director Yuki Tanaka stood in the heart of the Titan shipyard and watched a new warship take shape. The vessel was massive, 3 times the size of anything humanity had built before. Its hull was black as night, covered in a substance that made sensors slide away like water off glass. Its engines were new technology, based on principles that should have taken centuries to discover. Desperation, Tanaka had learned, was the mother of innovation. She was 45 now, the young lieutenant long gone. In her place stood the head of the United Earth Defense Initiative, the most secret organization in human history. Every resource humanity had was funneled through her office. Every scientist, every engineer, every factory worked for a single purpose. The purpose was not survival, it was repayment. "The quantum tunneling drive is ready for final testing," reported Dr. Marcus Webb, her chief scientist. He was a thin man with wild hair and eyes that burned with barely contained excitement. "If it works, we can move a ship anywhere in the galaxy instantly. No warning, no way to track." "If it works," Tanaka repeated. "And if it doesn't?" Webb shrugged. "Then the test pilot becomes a very thin paste spread across several light years. Find volunteers anyway." "Already done. I have 300 applications. Everyone wants to be first." Tanaka nodded. That was humanity now. Everyone wanted to be the one who struck back. Everyone wanted to be part of the revenge that was coming. They had lost so much that they had nothing left to fear. She walked through the shipyard, past workers in pressure suits welding hull plates, past technicians calibrating weapon systems, past soldiers training in zero gravity. They all stopped to salute her when she passed. She acknowledged each one. These people had lost everything. Families killed in the massacre, homes taken by the Valanthi, friends left behind on occupied worlds. They worked 20-hour days. They slept in bunks stacked 3 high. They gave everything they had because they remembered what had been taken from them. The shipyard on Titan was just one of many. There were others on Luna, on Mars, on Europa. Deep beneath the ice of outer moons, humanity built its new fleet in absolute secrecy. The Valanthi sensors were good, but they could not see through kilometers of frozen water. They could not detect the ships being built in hollowed-out asteroids. They had no idea that the broken, silent humans were preparing the greatest military force in galactic history. That was what happened when you underestimated humanity. You looked at a species that had only been in space for a few centuries and assumed they were children playing with toys. You did not realize that humans had spent their entire history fighting wars with each other, developing weapons, finding new ways to kill and survive. The Valanthi had given humanity a wound that could never heal. In return, humanity was forging that wound into a weapon. Tanaka entered the command center of the shipyard. Banks of computers lined the walls, displaying information from across the solar system. One screen showed the Valanthi patrol routes, tracked by hidden sensors. Another showed the production schedules for new ships. A third showed something called the Ledger. The Ledger was Tanaka's masterpiece. It was a database containing everything humanity had learned about the Valanthi Dominion over the past decade. Every ship they owned, every station they operated, every trade route they used, every colony they controlled, every resource they possessed. The information came from many sources. Human prisoners who had escaped from Valanthi space, captured communications intercepted by hidden relay stations, even a few brave spies who had infiltrated Valanthi society at the cost of their lives. Every piece of data was cataloged and organized. Every Valanthi asset was given a value based on what it was worth. When the time came, humanity would know exactly what to take and how to take it. General Marcus Stone entered the command center. He was an old man now, his face scarred from the wounds he had received at Cygnus Prime. One eye was gone, replaced by a cybernetic implant that glowed faint blue. He had refused a realistic replacement. He wanted to remember. The new recruits have finished their training, Stone reported. His voice was rough, damaged by smoke inhalation when his ship had been hit during the massacre. They're ready for deployment. All of them? Tanaka asked. Every single one. These kids are different, Director. They were born after the betrayal. They grew up hearing stories about what the Valanthi did to us. They've never known a universe where we weren't at war. Tanaka nodded slowly. An entire generation raised on hatred. It was not healthy. It was not good. But it was necessary. How many ships are ready? She asked. 600 combat ready. Another 200 in final fitting. 50 more coming off the line every month. Stone paused. We could attack now. We have enough. Not yet. We don't just want to hurt them, Marcus. We want to take everything they have. When we move, we need to be able to seize their assets faster than they can destroy them. Stone's scarred face twisted into something like a smile. The boys and girls are getting restless. They've been training for years. They want to fight. Tell them to be patient. The Valanthi waited for the perfect moment to betray us. We will wait for the perfect moment to collect our debt. Stone saluted and left. Tanaka turned back to the displays and studied the ledger. The numbers were staggering. The Valanthi controlled hundreds of systems, thousands of ships, millions of tons of resources, industrial capacity that dwarfed what humanity had lost. All of it would be claimed, every last bit. She thought about Admiral Vance, retired now but still alive. The old woman had refused any official position in the new military. She said she had done enough leading. Now she just wanted to watch. Tanaka understood. Vance had led humanity through the darkest moment in their history. She had earned the right to rest, but Tanaka knew that when the time came, Vance would be there. Some wounds never healed. Some debts could only be paid in person. A message arrived from Earth. Tanaka read it and allowed herself a rare smile. The quantum tunneling drive had worked. The test pilot had arrived at the target coordinates 3,000 light-years away in less than a second. He was alive and reporting back via quantum-linked communication. The technology was ready. The ships were ready. The soldiers were ready. Soon, humanity would be ready. 6 months later, the final fleet review took place in the shadow of Saturn's rings. General Stone stood on the bridge of the TSS Remembrance, the new flagship of the human navy. The ship was a monster, bristling with weapons that the galaxy had never seen. Its hull was coated in adaptive nanite armor that could repair itself in seconds. Its shields could absorb enough energy to crack a planet. Its main gun could punch through a capital ship from one side to the other. And it was just one of 800 vessels assembled for the review. The fleet stretched across space like a wall of black steel. Battleships and cruisers and carriers and destroyers. Assault ships and boarding pods and electronic warfare vessels. A force designed not for battle, but for seizure. Admiral Helena Vance stood beside Stone on the bridge. She was old now, her hair white and her face lined with age. But her eyes were still sharp, still burning with the fire that had kept her going through a decade of waiting. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. "Beautiful and deadly," Stone agreed. "These ships can do things the Valanthi can't even imagine. We can appear anywhere in their space without warning. We can disable their systems before they know we're there. We can take their ships intact and add them to our fleet." "No killing," Vance reminded him. "That's the rule." Stone nodded, though his expression suggested he wished it were otherwise. "No killing. We capture, we seize, we process, we release. We take everything they own without spilling a drop of blood. It's important. If we become like them, we've already lost." Stone did not argue. He had learned long ago that the Admiral's way was not about mercy. It was about something deeper, about proving that humanity was better than the species that had betrayed them. The fleet was silent, holding formation. 800 ships, each one crewed by men and women who had trained for years for this moment. Each one carrying soldiers and technicians ready to board enemy vessels and strip them of everything valuable. Stone activated the fleet-wide communication channel. His voice echoed through every ship, reaching every crew member. 10 years ago, the Valanthi murdered 17 million of our people. They took our colonies. They stole our future. They left us for dead. He paused, letting the words sink in. They called us their little brothers. They said we were useful. When we stopped being useful, they threw us away like garbage. The galaxy watched and did nothing. The galactic concord expressed concern and then forgot about us. Another pause. The silence was absolute. Today, we show them what humanity really is. Today, we begin collecting what we are owed, not through destruction, not through slaughter, through systematic seizure of every asset they possess. Their ships will become our ships. Their stations will become our stations. Their wealth will become our wealth. We will take everything they have, and we will leave them with nothing but the memory of what they did to us. Stone looked at the assembled fleet, at the weapons of vengeance that humanity had forged in silence and shadow. This is not revenge. Revenge is too simple. This is repossession. This is collection on a debt paid in human blood. They owe us 17 million lives. They cannot repay that debt, so we will take everything else instead. He straightened his uniform and spoke the words that would launch the greatest military campaign in human history. All ships, engage quantum drives. Target coordinates locked. We jump in 1 minute. Across the fleet, countdown timers began. Engines hummed with power. Weapons charged. Soldiers checked their equipment one final time. Admiral Vance watched through the view screen as Saturn's rings glittered in the distant sunlight. 10 years of waiting. 10 years of planning. 10 years of hate and hope and determination. It was finally time. "Stone," she said quietly. "Admiral? Make them remember." Stone smiled grimly. "That's the plan." The countdown reached 0. In perfect unison, 800 human warships activated their quantum drives and vanished from the Sol system. They left behind empty space and a single automated message broadcasting on all frequencies. The message reached the Valanthe patrol ship seconds later. It was the same 2 words humanity had sent 10 years ago, but now they carried a different weight. "We remember." The patrol commanders barely had time to report the message before they realized the human ships were gone. They searched frantically, scanning every direction, looking for where the fleet had run. They never considered that humanity might be attacking. That was their final mistake. In the throne room of his palace, High Regent Sithrax received a priority communication from the border systems. He was old now, his scales faded and his movements slow, but his mind was still sharp, and he recognized fear in the voice of his border commander. "High Regent, the humans have appeared in our space, 600 ships, maybe more. They came out of nowhere. We don't know how. Our sensors never detected them." Sithrax frowned. 600 ships. That was impossible. Humanity had been trapped in their home system for a decade. They had barely 40 ships left after the massacre. "Confirm those numbers," he ordered. "Confirmed, High Regent. They're moving toward Border Station Ascendant Glory. They're not responding to our hails. They're just coming." Sithrax felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Something that might have been worry. "Stop them," he commanded. "Send everything we have to that sector." "Yes, High Regent." The communication ended. Sithrax sat on his throne and thought about what he had heard. 600 ships, appearing from nowhere. Technology that should not exist. He thought about the message his patrols had reported. "We remember." For the first time in 10 years, High Regent Sithrax wondered if he had made a mistake. He looked out the window of his throne room at the stars of his dominion. Hundreds of systems, thousands of ships, millions of citizens, an empire built over thousands of years. The humans couldn't threaten any of that. They were too few, too weak, too young, weren't they? Sithrax thought about the look in Admiral Vance's eyes 10 years ago. The cold certainty, the absolute promise of retribution. "You will pay for this," she had said. "Every last one of you." He had laughed at her then. Now watching his border commanders scramble to respond to an impossible threat, he found he could not laugh anymore. The humans had been silent for 10 years, silent and patient and waiting. What had they been doing all that time? Sithrax was about to find out. Commander Thrak of the Valanthe Border Station Ascendant Glory was having a normal day until the universe ended. He had been commander of the station for 6 years. It was a quiet posting, guarding the edge of Dominion space against threats that never came. The humans were trapped in their home system. The Wraith had retreated to their own territory after the treaty. The only traffic was the occasional merchant ship and the regular patrol cruisers. Then the alarm started screaming. "Commander, we have contacts appearing on long-range sensors," his tactical officer reported, her voice rising with confusion. "Multiple contacts, many multiple contacts." Thrak looked at the display and felt his blood go cold. Ships were appearing out of nowhere, as if they were stepping through invisible doors in space. Black ships, covered in hulls that sensors could barely detect. Ships that matched no known design in the Volanthi database. "How many?" he demanded. "Still counting, sir. At least 600. They're not slowing down. They're coming straight at us." 600 ships. Thrak tried to process that number. The entire Volanthi border fleet in this sector was only 12 vessels. 600 was a number for a full invasion force. "Identification? Unknown, sir. The computer can't match the design to any species on record." But Thrak knew. Somehow, in the deep part of his mind where instinct lived, he knew exactly who these ships belonged to. He thought about the stories his grandfather had told him, about the massacre at Cygnus Prime, about the humans who had been betrayed and left to die. "We remember," his grandfather had said. That was the message they sent, and someday they will come back. Thrak had laughed at the old man. The humans were finished. Everyone knew that. Now, watching 600 impossible ships racing toward his station, Thrak realized his grandfather had been right. "Send a warning to command," he ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. "Full priority. Tell them the humans have returned." "Yes, sir. What are your orders?" Thrak looked at the tactical display. His 12 patrol ships against 600 warships. There was no battle to be fought here. There was only survival. "Power up the shields and charge all weapons," he said. "Prepare to defend the station." It was a futile gesture. He knew it. His crew knew it. But what else could they do? The human fleet arrived 30 minutes later. They dropped out of their impossible faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, surrounding the station like a net closing around a fish. Thrak had never seen ships move with such precision. It was like watching a machine, every part working in perfect harmony. "They're hailing us," the communications officer said. "On screen." A human face appeared. A woman, her features hard and her eyes cold. She wore a black uniform with no decoration except a single silver pin on her collar. When she spoke, her voice was flat and emotionless. "Volanthi Station Ascendant Glory, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Republic Navy. You are hereby ordered to power down all weapons and shields and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. You have 60 seconds to comply." Thrak stared at her. "You cannot do this. This is Volanthi sovereign territory. You are committing an act of war. War was declared 10 years ago when you murdered 17 million of our people at Cygnus Prime," Chen replied. "We are simply continuing that war. 50 seconds. The Galactic Concord will not allow this. You will face consequences. The Galactic Concord allowed you to betray and slaughter us without consequences. We expect the same courtesy. 40 seconds. Thrak felt sweat forming on his scales. He looked at his crew, saw the fear in their eyes. They were not warriors. They were border guards. They had never faced a real enemy. "We can fight," his tactical officer said, but her voice trembled. "Against 600 ships." Thrak shook his head. "Power down weapons. Drop the shields." "Sir, do it, now." The station's weapons went silent. The shields flickered and died. On the view screen, Thrak saw the human fleet moving closer. Small assault ships launched from the carriers, heading straight for the station. "What happens now?" he asked. Commander Chen's expression did not change. "Now we board your station. We catalog everything of value. We transfer all equipment, resources, and data to our ships. Your crew will be processed and released in escape pods with enough supplies to reach the nearest neutral territory. Your station will be stripped to the hull and left as a marker." "A marker of what?" "Of what happens to those who betray humanity." The first boarding pods latched onto the station's hull with heavy clangs that echoed through the corridors. Thrak ordered his crew not to resist. There was no point. Whatever the humans were doing, Fighting would only make it worse. The human soldiers were different from what Thrak expected. They were efficient and professional, moving through the station with practiced precision. They did not shout or threaten. They did not abuse the Volanthi crew. They simply took everything. Thrak watched as humans carried equipment out of his command center. Computer cores, communication systems, sensor arrays. Even the chairs and tables were tagged for removal. One human soldier approached him with a scanning device. "Name and rank," the soldier said. "Commander Thrak, Station Commander." The soldier entered the information. "You will be processed and released. Follow the blue line to the holding area." "What are you going to do with our station?" The soldier looked at him. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Something that might have been satisfaction. "We're going to take it apart piece by piece. Every circuit, every power coupling, every ration bar in your storage. By the time we're done, there won't be enough left to build a shelter. That's what we're going to do." She gestured toward the corridor. "Blue line, move." Thrak moved. He had no other choice. In the first 72 hours, the human fleet took 14 Volanthi border systems. The pattern was always the same. Ships appeared without warning. Stations and outposts were surrounded. Defenders were given a chance to surrender. Those who refused were disabled by electronic weapons that shut down their systems without killing anyone. Then the humans boarded, stripped everything of value, and moved on. General Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of the TSS Remembrance and watched the operation unfold on the tactical display. Blue dots representing human forces were spreading across the border region like a wave, swallowing everything in their path. "We've taken 43 ships so far," his aide reported. 22 cruisers, 18 destroyers, and 3 supply vessels, all intact, all crews processed and released. Casualties? 0 on our side, 7 minor injuries on theirs, all from accidents during evacuation. No deaths. Stone nodded. That was the plan. No deaths, no massacres, just systematic seizure of everything the Volanthi owned. They wanted the galaxy to see the difference between what the Volanthi had done to humanity and what humanity was doing in return. Admiral Vance entered the bridge. She moved slowly now, her age catching up with her, but her mind was as sharp as ever. "How is the operation proceeding?" she asked. "Ahead of schedule," Stone replied. "Their border forces were even weaker than we expected. They never thought we would attack." "Of course not. They assumed we were beaten." Vance looked at the tactical display. "Have they responded yet?" "Their main fleet is mobilizing. We estimate they will reach this sector in approximately 48 hours. "Good. That gives us time to take their forward shipyard at Kethris." Stone frowned. "Kethris is heavily defended. Their third fleet is stationed there." "Then we will take their third fleet as well." Vance smiled. It was not a kind expression. "Every ship they send against us is another ship we can capture. Let them come." The assault on Kethris began the next day. The Volanthi Third Fleet was waiting, 200 ships arranged in a defensive formation around the massive orbital shipyard. They had been warned about the human attack. They thought they were ready. They were wrong. The human fleet appeared in 3 groups, surrounding the Volanthi formation. Before the defenders could react, massive electromagnetic pulses swept through their ships, overloading systems and disrupting power. Shields flickered and died. Weapons went offline. Engines sputtered and failed. The Volanthi flagship managed to fire a single shot before its systems crashed. The plasma bolt struck the TSS Remembrance's shields and dissipated harmlessly. A moment later, human boarding pods were attaching to the flagship's hull. Admiral Crix, commander of the Third Fleet, watched helplessly as human soldiers flooded his ship. They disabled his guards with non-lethal weapons. They sealed the corridors. They took control of engineering, then weapons, then the bridge. When they finally reached the command center, Crix was waiting for them. He stood tall, his scales bright with defiance. He would not show weakness before these humans. The human commander who entered was a young man, barely out of his training years. He looked at Crix without fear or hatred, just cold professionalism. "Admiral Crix, I am Captain David Rodriguez of the Terran Republic Navy. Your ship is now Terran property. Your crew will be processed and released. Any personal items will be returned to you. Please follow me." "I demand to speak to your commanding officer," Crix said. You may submit a formal request through proper channels once you reach neutral territory. Now please follow me. Crix did not move. Do you know who I am? I have served the Dominion for 60 years. I have commanded fleets that could crush your entire species. Rodriguez's expression did not change. Yes, and now you command nothing. Your ship belongs to us. Your fleet belongs to us. Your shipyard belongs to us. In a few hours, the ships your workers were building will be added to our inventory as well. That is what happens when you betray humanity, Admiral. Everything you have becomes ours. He gestured toward the door. Now please follow me. We have a schedule to keep. The capture of Kethris took 4 hours. The Valanthi shipyard, one of the largest in the Dominion, was stripped of every piece of equipment that could be removed. Partially constructed ships were towed away by human tugs. Completed vessels were claimed and added to the fleet. Weapons, computers, raw materials, everything was taken. When the humans left, they left behind only the empty hull of the shipyard, a hollow shell drifting in space. On its surface, they had welded a message in letters a kilometer tall. We remember, you will pay. The message was visible from orbit around the nearby planet. Every Valanthi who saw it understood what it meant. The humans were not here to fight. They were here to take everything. High Regent Sithrax received the reports in his throne room. Each one was worse than the last. Border stations seized, patrol fleets captured, the Third Fleet taken intact without a single human casualty. How is this possible, he demanded. How did they build this force without us knowing? His advisors had no answers. They had been watching the Sol system for 10 years. They had seen nothing. The humans had built their fleet in secret, hidden beneath the moons and asteroids of their home system, invisible to Valanthi sensors. They have technology we have never seen, Fleet Admiral Korath reported. His voice was shaken. He had commanded fleets for 40 years. He had never faced an enemy like this. They can appear anywhere without warning. They can disable our ships before we can fight back. They are faster, stronger, and better organized than anything we have faced. Then destroy them, Sithrax ordered. Send everything we have. Overwhelm them with numbers. High Regent, with respect, that is what they want. Every ship we send against them is a ship they can capture. They are not trying to destroy our fleet. They are trying to take it. Sithrax slammed his fist on the arm of his throne. Then what do you suggest? Korath was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I suggest we contact the Galactic Concord and ask for help. The Concord? Sithrax laughed bitterly. They did nothing when we betrayed the humans. Why would they help us now? Because if the humans succeed here, they will not stop. They will take everything we have, and then they will come for the rest of the galaxy. The other species must understand that. Sithrax considered this. He hated the idea of asking for help. The Valanthi were a proud species. They did not beg. But pride would not stop the human fleet. Pride would not save his shipyards. Pride would not prevent the systematic dismantling of everything his ancestors had built. Very well, he said at last. Contact the Concord. Tell them that humanity has become a threat to galactic peace. Ask them to intervene. The response came 3 days later. Ambassador Chen Wei of the Terran Republic addressed the Galactic Concord Assembly via quantum-linked communication. His face was calm, but his words were sharp as knives. The Valanthi ask for your help. They claim that humanity is a threat to galactic peace. Let me remind this assembly of what happened 10 years ago. He paused, letting the silence build. 17 million humans died at Cygnus Prime, murdered by our allies, betrayed in the middle of a battle. Our worlds were taken. Our people were enslaved. We begged this Concord for justice, and you gave us nothing. You watched our species nearly die and did nothing. Now we are taking what we are owed. We are seizing Valanthi assets to pay for the lives they stole. We are not killing them. We are not massacring their civilians. We are simply taking their things. He leaned forward, his eyes hard. You watched us suffer in silence. Now you will watch us collect our debt in silence. Unless, of course, any of you wish to add your names to our ledger. We have room for more entries. The Concord's response was silence. No species spoke in defense of the Valanthi. No species offered assistance. They remembered what had happened 10 years ago. They remembered the massacre at Cygnus Prime, and they understood what the humans were saying. Stay out of this, or you will be next. Ambassador Chen smiled. It was not a friendly expression. I thought so. This session is concluded. The transmission ended. The Valanthi were alone. High Regent Scythrax watched the recording of the ambassador's speech and felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. The humans were coming. They could not be stopped. They could not be negotiated with. They would take everything and leave nothing behind but empty hulls and bitter memories. And the galaxy would watch and do nothing, just as they had done 10 years ago. Scythrax looked out the window at the stars of his dominion. How many of those systems still belonged to him? How many would be left when the humans were finished? He thought about the words he had spoken to Admiral Vance after the massacre. Accept your fate with dignity, little brother. Now those words echoed in his mind like a curse. The humans had not accepted their fate. They had forged a new one, and now they were coming to claim everything he owned. Everything. Scythrax closed his eyes and waited for the storm to arrive. 6 months into the campaign, the Valanthi Dominion was dying. Not from casualties. The humans had maintained their strange policy of no killing. Every captured crew was processed and released. Every wounded soldier was given medical treatment. Every civilian was left unharmed. It was the strangest war the galaxy had ever seen. But the Dominion was dying anyway, bleeding out from 1,000 cuts that did not draw blood. Fleet Admiral Korath stood before the High Council and delivered his report. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled. He had served the Dominion for 50 years. He had never felt so helpless. Our military losses are severe. We have lost approximately 2,300 ships to capture. The humans have seized 89 orbital stations, including 7 major shipyards. Our fleet strength has been reduced by 40%. 40%, Councillor Threx repeated. She was old, one of the oldest members of the council, and she had seen many wars. But nothing like this. In 6 months? Yes, Councillor, but that is not the worst of it. Korath activated the display behind him. Charts and graphs appeared, showing lines that all pointed downward. The humans are not just taking military assets, they are systematically dismantling our economy. They have seized our entire rare mineral reserve from the Kethris mining stations. That reserve represented 30% of our industrial capacity. Without it, we cannot build new ships. He changed the display. They have captured 12 agricultural worlds and taken their complete harvest. That food was meant to feed 300 million people for the next year. We are facing widespread famine within months. Another change. They have seized our central banking network's quantum encryption keys. We do not know how. Our best security experts say it should have been impossible. But the humans have done it. They now have access to every financial transaction in the Dominion. They know where every credit is. They know where every resource is stored. The council members shifted uncomfortably. This was not warfare as they understood it. This was something else, something systematic and terrifying. How are they doing this? High Regent Scythrax demanded. How are they everywhere at once? Their ships can travel instantly, Korath explained. They appear without warning, strike before we can respond, and vanish before reinforcements arrive. Our traditional defensive strategies are useless against them. By the time we move our fleets to protect one target, they have already taken 3 others. Then we must attack their home system, Councillor Vurek said. He was young and aggressive, always eager for battle. Strike at Earth, force them to defend their own territory. We tried, Councillor. 3 weeks ago, we sent a fleet of 200 ships to attack Sol. They never arrived. What do you mean, never arrived? They dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system and immediately ran into a minefield. New technology we have never seen before. Mines that can phase through shields and detonate inside the hull. We lost 40 ships in the first minute. The rest retreated before the human fleet could engage them. Vrex's scales paled. 40 ships in 1 minute. The humans have spent 10 years preparing for this. Every approach to their home system is defended. Every strategy we might use has been anticipated. They know us better than we know ourselves. High Regent Scythrax sat in silence, absorbing the report. His golden eyes were dull now, tired from months of defeat. The proud ruler who had ordered the massacre at Cygnus Prime was gone, replaced by a frightened old man watching his empire crumble. "What do they want?" he asked quietly. "What will make them stop?" "I do not know, High Regent. They have not made any demands. They have not offered negotiations. They simply take everything they can reach and move on. There must be something. No species fights without purpose." "What is their purpose?" Korath hesitated. "I have studied their patterns. I believe I understand what they are doing." "Tell me." "They are not trying to conquer us, High Regent. They are not trying to destroy us. They are trying to own us. Every asset they seize is cataloged and valued. Every ship, every station, every resource. They are keeping a ledger, a record of everything they take. I believe they intend to seize assets equal to the value of what we took from them 10 years ago. And how much is that? By our calculations, they believe we owe them the value of 17 million lives, plus the full value of all the territory we claimed after the massacre. At current rates, they have seized approximately 1/17 of that debt." The council chamber fell silent. 1/17. After 6 months of devastation, the humans had only claimed 1/17 of what they believed they were owed. "How long until they have taken everything?" Thrax asked. "At current rates, assuming our economy does not collapse completely, approximately 8 to 10 years. "We cannot survive 10 years of this," Vrex said. "The Dominion will be empty long before then." "Yes, Counselor, I believe that is the point." Ambassador Chen Wei of the Terran Republic was having a productive day. He sat in his office aboard the TSS Reconciliation, a diplomatic vessel traveling through recently claimed space. His desk was covered with reports from the various seizure operations happening across Valanthi territory. Each report brought good news. The Karath industrial complex had been taken intact. 3 million tons of manufacturing equipment, now Terran property. The Velthar fuel depot had been captured with full reserves, enough hydrogen fuel to power the fleet for years. The Synax research station had been seized along with all its data, new technology to study and adapt. Chen read each report carefully and added the values to the master ledger. The numbers were impressive. Trillions of credits worth of assets, transferred from Valanthi ownership to human hands without firing a single shot. Well, almost without firing a single shot. There had been a few incidents where Valanthi commanders had refused to surrender. In those cases, the human forces had disabled their ships with electromagnetic weapons and boarded anyway. Some Valanthi had resisted the boarding. They had been subdued with non-lethal weapons, treated for their injuries, and released with the others. The humans were very careful about their no-killing policy. It was not mercy. It was strategy. Director Tanaka had explained it years ago during the planning stages. If we kill them, we become like them. We become the monsters they made us. But if we take everything they have without spilling blood, we prove that we are better. We show the galaxy that humanity can defeat an enemy without becoming evil. That is worth more than any amount of revenge. Chen had understood. He had lost his grandfather at Cygnus Prime. He had spent years dreaming of Valanthi blood. But Tanaka was right. This way was better. A communication came through. Chen activated the display and saw the face of General Stone, scarred and grim as always. "Ambassador, we have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The Wraith Collective is withdrawing from human-adjacent space. They are pulling back their forces from the former human colonies they claimed after the massacre." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Withdrawing? Why?" "Best guess? They're scared. They see what we're doing to the Valanthi, and they don't want to be next. They're abandoning their claims rather than risk a confrontation." Chen considered this. The Wraith had been partners in the Valanthi betrayal. They had taken half of human space as their reward. By all rights, they were on the ledger as well. "Should we pursue them?" Stone shook his head. "Not yet. One enemy at a time. But I wanted you to know that our reputation is spreading. The galaxy is starting to understand what humanity has become." "Good. Let them understand. Let them watch." The communication ended. Chen turned back to his reports. Outside his window, stars drifted past, stars that had once belonged to the Valanthi. Now they belonged to humanity. On the Valanthi homeworld, food riots were breaking out. The humans had seized the harvest shipments from 12 agricultural colonies. They had captured the food processing stations in the outer systems. They had taken the seed vaults and genetic repositories that contained the blueprints for every crop the Valanthi grew. Now, for the first time in centuries, Valanthi citizens were going hungry. High Regent Sitharax watched the riots from his palace window. His guards had orders to maintain peace, but they were outnumbered. The people were angry. They blamed the government for the disaster. They blamed Sitharax for the war that was destroying them. They were right to blame him. He knew that now. His advisor, Counselor Thane, entered the room. Thane was a small, quiet man who had served 3 high regents. His loyalty was absolute, but his expression was troubled. High Regent, we have received a new message from the human fleet. What do they want now? They are offering a temporary ceasefire. They will stop seizing assets for 30 days if we agree to negotiate. Sitharax felt hope flicker in his chest. Negotiation. Perhaps there was a way out of this. What are their terms? They have not specified terms yet. They simply wish to talk. Ambassador Chen Wei has offered to meet with you personally. Chen Wei. Sitharax remembered the face from the Galactic Concord broadcast. The cold eyes, the sharp words. He hates us. Yes, High Regent, but he is willing to talk. That is more than they have offered before. Sitharax thought about the riots outside. He thought about the empty storehouses and the captured ships and the dying economy. He thought about the reports from the front, each one worse than the last. Very well, arrange the meeting. The negotiation took place on a neutral station in unclaimed space. Sitharax arrived with a small delegation, surrounded by guards he knew would be useless if the humans decided to attack. Ambassador Chen arrived alone. He wore a simple black uniform, the same style as every human soldier Sitharax had seen in the reports. His face showed nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no mercy. High Regent Sitharax, Chen said, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I had little choice, Sitharax replied. Your forces are destroying my dominion. We prefer the term repossessing. We are simply taking back what you owe us. And what exactly do we owe you? Chen activated a holographic display. Numbers appeared, columns and rows of data stretching far beyond what Sitharax could easily read. This is the ledger, a complete accounting of everything humanity has lost and everything we intend to claim. 17 million lives at standard galactic compensation rates, 412 ships destroyed at Cygnus Prime, 47 colony worlds seized by your forces, industrial capacity, research data, cultural artifacts, everything. He paused. At current values, the total debt stands at approximately 74 trillion credits. Adjusted for 10 years of interest and punitive damages, the final amount is somewhat higher. Sitharax stared at the numbers. They were impossible. The entire Valanthi Dominion was not worth that much. You cannot expect us to pay this. We do not expect you to pay in credits, Chen said. We expect you to pay in assets. Ships, stations, colonies, resources. We will take what you have until the debt is settled. And if we have nothing left, Chen's expression did not change. Then the debt will be settled. Sitharax felt a chill run through his scales. The human meant it. They would take everything, leave the Dominion as an empty shell, and call the debt paid. There must be another way. Surely we can reach some agreement. You had the chance for agreement 10 years ago, Chen said. You chose massacre instead. Now there is no agreement. There is only the ledger. We could fight. We still have ships. We still have soldiers. Yes, and we will take those too. Chen leaned forward. High Regent, let me be clear. You cannot win this war. Every ship you send against us is a ship we can capture. Every station you defend is a station we can seize. Your economy is collapsing. Your people are starving. Your allies have abandoned you. There is no path to victory for the Valanthi Dominion. Then why are we here? Why did you offer this meeting? To give you a choice. You can continue to resist, and we will take everything by force, or you can surrender peacefully, and we will take everything with less disruption. Either way, the result is the same. The only question is how much suffering you want your people to endure along the way. Sitharax was silent for a long moment. He thought about the protests. He thought about his admirals captured or killed. He thought about the future of his species. If we surrender, what happens to our people? They will not be harmed. They will not be enslaved. They will not be expelled from their homes. They will simply live under human administration until we are satisfied that the debt has been paid. Their children will be educated. Their sick will be treated. Their culture will be preserved. We are not monsters, High Regent. We are not you. The words stung. Sithrax wanted to argue, to protest, to defend his actions. But he could not. He had ordered the massacre at Cygnus Prime. He had laughed at Admiral Vance's threats. He had called the humans his little brothers while planning their extinction. Now his little brothers had come to collect. I need time to consult with my council, Sithrax said. You have 1 week. After that, operations resume. Chen stood. One more thing, High Regent. Yes? Admiral Vance asked me to give you a message. Chen's eyes were cold. She says she remembers your laugh. She says she remembers your words. Accept your fate with dignity, you told her. Now she offers you the same advice. He turned and walked away, leaving Sithrax alone with his thoughts and the ghost of 17 million dead. The week passed quickly. Sithrax met with his council. They argued and debated and proposed 1,000 different strategies. Attack the humans, flee to unknown space, ask the Galactic Concord for help, surrender completely, resist to the last ship. In the end, none of it mattered. The humans held all the cards. They had the ships. They had the technology. They had the will to continue until the ledger was balanced. Sithrax made his decision. He sent a message to Ambassador Chen, accepting the terms of surrender. The Valanthi Dominion would cease all resistance. Human forces would be allowed to seize assets without interference. In return, the humans would protect Valanthi civilians and maintain order during the transition. It was the end of an empire. General Stone received the news aboard the TSS Remembrance. He read the surrender terms and nodded slowly. They gave up easier than I expected, he said. Admiral Vance sat in a chair near the window, watching the stars. She was very old now, her body failing even as her mind remained sharp. They had no choice, as she said. They could not win. Fighting would only have prolonged the suffering. Do you feel satisfied? Vance was quiet for a long moment. Satisfied? No. 17 million people died at Cygnus Prime. No amount of ships or stations will bring them back. But this is something. It proves that actions have consequences. It proves that humanity cannot be betrayed without cost. What about Sithrax, the Council? They ordered the massacre. They should face justice. They will. War crimes tribunals conducted by neutral parties. Everything done legally, everything documented, everything fair. We will not become what they made us. Stone looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Valanthi Dominion was dying. The greatest power in the sector, brought low by a species they had tried to destroy. What happens now, he asked. Now we finish the work. We take what we are owed, we rebuild what was lost, and we make sure the galaxy never forgets what happened here. Vance closed her eyes. We remember, she whispered, and now they will too. 1 year after the reckoning began, the treaty was signed. The ceremony took place aboard the TSS Remembrance, in the same corridor where Admiral Helena Vance had nearly died during the massacre at Cygnus Prime. The bulkhead still bore the scars of Valanthi weapons fire, carefully preserved as a reminder of what had happened in this place. High Regent Sithrax walked through the corridor with slow, heavy steps. His guards had been left behind. His advisors were not permitted. He was alone, surrounded by human soldiers in black uniforms, walking toward the moment that would end everything he had built. The corridor opened into a large chamber that had once been the ship's main hangar. Now it was filled with witnesses, human officers in dress uniforms, representatives from the Galactic Concord, watching with careful eyes. Journalists recording everything for the billions who would watch later. And at the center of the room, waiting for him, stood Admiral Helena Vance. She was ancient now, her hair white and thin, her body supported by a powered frame that helped her stand. But her eyes were the same, sharp, cold, unforgiving. Sithrax had seen those eyes in his nightmares for 10 years. High Regent Sithrax, she said. Her voice was quiet but carried through the silent room. You have come to sign the surrender of the Valanthi Dominion. I have, Sithrax replied. His own voice sounded weak to his ears. May we proceed? Not yet. First, there are words that must be spoken. Vance stepped forward, and despite her age and frailty, Sithrax felt the urge to step back. He forced himself to stand still. 10 years ago, you stood on the bridge of your flagship and watched your fleet murder 17 million of my people. You called it strategy. You called it necessity. You told me to accept my fate with dignity. She paused, letting the words hang in the air. Today, you will sign a document that transfers all military assets of the Valanthi Dominion to the Terran Republic. You will sign over control of your colonies to human governors. You will agree to reparations that will last for 10 generations. You will submit yourself and your council to trial for war crimes against humanity. Sithrax felt his scales tighten. He had agreed to all of this. He knew it was coming. But hearing it spoken aloud, in front of the galaxy, made it real in a way he had not expected. And yet, Vance continued, there is something you should know about this treaty, something that may surprise you. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared. Sithrax looked at the document, reading the terms that had been negotiated over the past months. Military assets, colonial administration, war crimes, tribunals, economic reparations. But there at the bottom were clauses he had not expected. Protection of Valanthi civilians, preservation of Valanthi culture, education rights for Valanthi children, medical care for Valanthi sick, freedom of movement within Valanthi territory, property rights for individual Valanthi citizens. You are not enslaving us, Sithrax said slowly. No. You are not displacing us. No. You are not destroying our culture or separating our families or grinding us into dust. No. Vance's eyes never left his face. We are not you. The chamber was silent. The witnesses watched, barely breathing. This was not what anyone had expected. The humans had been betrayed, massacred, left to die. They had every reason to want vengeance. They had every right to treat the Valanthi as the Valanthi had treated them. But they were choosing something else. I do not understand, Sithrax said. Why? After what we did to you, why show us mercy? Vance was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. When you betrayed us at Cygnus Prime, you taught humanity a lesson. You taught us that the galaxy is cruel, that kindness is weakness, that trust is foolishness. You showed us what it means to be ruthless. She stepped closer, close enough that Sithrax could see every line on her face, every year of hatred and grief. But we rejected that lesson. We looked at what you did, and we decided that we did not want to become like you. We did not want to be the species that murders its allies. We did not want to be the species that laughs at suffering. We did not want to lose our humanity in the pursuit of revenge. She reached out and touched the treaty document, her fingers trembling slightly. So we made a choice. We would take everything you own. We would strip your empire to the bones. We would leave you with nothing but the memory of your crimes. But we would not kill you. We would not torture you. We would not become the monsters you tried to make us. Sithrax stared at her. He had prepared for many outcomes. Execution, slavery, exile. He had not prepared for this. You could have destroyed us, he said. Yes. You could have killed every last one of us. Yes. Why didn't you? Vance leaned closer, and when she spoke, her words were barely a whisper that only Sithrax could hear. Because every Valanthi child for the next 1,000 years will learn what you did to us. They will learn how you betrayed us, murdered us, left us to die. And then they will learn that we showed you mercy when mercy was not owed. They will learn that we could have exterminated your species and chose not to. That is a debt you can never repay. That is our true victory. She straightened, pulling back. Now, sign the treaty. Sithrax looked at the document. He thought about his ancestors, who had built the Dominion over thousands of years. He thought about his children, who would inherit an empire in ruins. He thought about the future, stretching out dark and uncertain, and then he signed. The applause was muted, respectful. This was not a celebration. It was the end of an era. The Valanthi Dominion, once the greatest power in the sector, had fallen. Not to war, not to conquest, to a species they had tried to destroy. General Stone watched from the side of the chamber. Beside him stood Director Tanaka, now an old woman but still sharp-eyed and alert. "It is done," Tanaka said quietly. "Almost done," Stone replied. "There is still the matter of the war crimes tribunals. Sithrax and his council will face justice. Yes, but that is a matter for the courts, not for us. Our work is finished." Stone nodded slowly. He thought about the past 10 years, the planning, the building, the endless training. All of it had led to this moment, this quiet ceremony in a scarred corridor. "Do you think they understand?" he asked. "Do you think they know why we did this?" The Valanthi? No, they will never understand. But the rest of the galaxy will. They are watching. They are learning. Learning what? Tanaka smiled, a cold expression that did not reach her eyes. That humanity is not to be trifled with, that we do not forgive, that we do not forget, and that even in victory, we are something more than conquerors. The ceremony ended. The witnesses departed. The journalists hurried to file their stories. Within hours, the news would spread across the galaxy. The Valanthi Dominion had fallen. Humanity had risen. The balance of power had shifted forever. High Regent Sithrax was escorted to a holding cell aboard a human transport ship. He would be taken to a neutral world for trial. The evidence against him was overwhelming. He would spend the rest of his life in prison, watching his empire crumble under human administration. As the cell door closed behind him, he thought about Admiral Vance's words. "Every Valanthi child for the next 1,000 years will learn what you did to us." She was right. They would learn. They would remember. And they would know that their ancestors had been defeated not by a stronger army, but by a species that chose to be better than its enemies. That was the cruelest punishment of all. Admiral Helena Vance returned to Earth 3 months after the treaty was signed. Her health was failing now, her body giving out after decades of service. She knew she did not have much time left. She spent her final days at her home in Japan, looking up at the same stars she had watched on the night after the massacre. The same stars that now shone over a very different galaxy. General Stone came to visit her one afternoon. He found her in the garden sitting in a wheelchair, watching the sunset. "Admiral," he said, sitting beside her, "Marcus, I thought you would be busy with the administration. Tanaka has things under control. I wanted to see you." Vance smiled, a genuine expression that softened her weathered face. "You are a sentimental old fool. I learn from the best." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from blue to orange to purple. The first stars appeared, faint points of light in the darkening sky. "Do you remember what you told me? After the massacre?" Stone asked. "You said we would remember. We would rebuild. We would make them pay." "I remember. We did all of that. We remembered. We rebuilt. We took everything they had." He paused. "Was it worth it?" Vance was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. "Worth it? I do not know. 17 million people are still dead. Nothing will bring them back. Nothing will undo what was done to us. But we proved something. We proved that humanity cannot be destroyed. We proved that betrayal has consequences. And we proved that we can win without becoming monsters." She looked at Stone, her eyes still sharp despite her age. "That is worth something. I choose to believe it is worth everything." Stone nodded slowly. He did not entirely agree with her. Part of him, the part that had been burned and broken at Cygnus Prime, wanted more, wanted blood, wanted revenge in its purest form. But he understood why Vance had chosen differently, and in the end, he respected her decision. "What happens now?" he asked. Now we build something better. We take the resources we have claimed and use them to strengthen humanity. We expand into the territory that was taken from us. We become the power we were always meant to be. And the Valanthi? They will survive. They will rebuild in time, under our supervision. In 100 years, when the occupation ends, they will be different. They will remember what they did and what was done to them. Perhaps they will be wiser. Do you believe that? Vance smiled. No, but I hope for it anyway. Hope is what makes us human, Marcus. Even after everything, I have not lost that. Stone reached out and took her hand. It was cold and thin, the hand of an old woman at the end of her life. But her grip was still strong. Thank you, he said, for everything. Thank me by building something worthy of what we sacrificed. That is all I ask. The Galactic Concord sent ambassadors to Earth within the month. They came in waves, representatives from every species in known space. They came with gifts and proposals and carefully worded treaties. They came because they had seen what humanity could do, and they did not want to be on the wrong side of that power. Ambassador Chen Wei received them in the new Terran Diplomatic Center, built on the ruins of the old United Nations building. He listened to their offers with polite attention and made few promises. The Terran Republic is open to new relationships, he told the assembled ambassadors. We believe in cooperation and mutual respect, but we have long memories and we have learned not to trust easily. Prove your worth and you will find us to be fair and generous allies. Betray us and you will find us to be the worst enemy you have ever faced. The ambassadors nodded and smiled and made their proposals. Behind their diplomatic masks, Chen could see the fear, the calculation, the desperate need to be on humanity's good side. The galaxy had changed. Humanity was no longer the young, naive species that could be manipulated and betrayed. They were something else now, something stronger, something harder, something that the other species had never imagined. That night, Chen stood on the balcony of his office and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling the former Volanthi territories. Somewhere out there, human governors were managing Volanthi colonies. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning to live with a new reality. He thought about the massacre at Cygnus Prime, about the 17 million who had died, about the years of silence and preparation, about the war that had followed. And he thought about what Admiral Vance had said to High Regent Sithrax in the treaty chamber. We are not you. That was the core of it. That was what made humanity different. They had been given every reason to become monsters. They had been pushed to the breaking point and beyond. But they had chosen, consciously and deliberately, to be something better. It was not mercy. It was not weakness. It was strength of a different kind. The strength to win without losing yourself. The strength to punish without becoming the thing you punished. Chen smiled and turned back toward his office. There was work to do. Treaties to negotiate. Alliances to build. A future to create. Humanity had proven what it was capable of. Now it was time to show what they would build with that power. Admiral Helena Vance died peacefully in her sleep 3 weeks later. The funeral was held in Tokyo, where she had spent her final years. Representatives from across human space came to pay their respects. General Stone gave the eulogy, his scarred face wet with tears he did not try to hide. She saved us, he said. When we were broken and beaten, she held us together. When we wanted to give up, she gave us hope. When we wanted to become monsters, she showed us a better way. We owe her everything. Her body was cremated as she had requested. Her ashes were scattered among the stars, carried by a fleet of human ships to the site of the Battle of Cygnus Prime. There, in the empty space where 17 million humans had died, a memorial had been built, a massive structure of black stone and crystal, listing every name, every ship, every life that had been lost. The ashes of Admiral Helena Vance were placed at the heart of the memorial, watching over the dead forever. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions watched as humanity honored their fallen and their savior. And in that moment, something shifted. The Volanthi watched and understood that they had underestimated their victims. The Wraith watched and understood that they were lucky to have retreated. The Galactic Concord watched and understood that a new power had risen, and humanity watched and remembered. They remembered the massacre. They remembered the years of silence. They remembered the war that had followed. They remembered everything. But they also looked forward, to the future they would build, to the galaxy they would shape, to the legacy they would leave. Admiral Vance had shown them what humanity could be. Now it was up to them to live up to her example. The TSS Remembrance remained in orbit around the memorial for 3 days. On the final day, General Stone stood on the bridge and looked out at the stars. "What do you think she would say if she could see this?" Captain Rodriguez asked. Stone considered the question. He thought about Vance, about her strength and her wisdom and her unbreakable will. "She would say that we have work to do," he said finally. "She would say that we proved ourselves in war, and now we must prove ourselves in peace. She would say that power is only valuable if it is used wisely." "And what would she say to the galaxy?" Stone smiled, a rare expression on his scarred face. "She would say what she said at the treaty signing, what she said to Scytherax in that corridor, the words that will echo through history for as long as humanity exists." He turned to face the view screen, looking out at the stars that now belonged to his species. "We are not you," he said, "and we never will be." The TSS Remembrance turned and headed back toward Earth, carrying the legacy of a woman who had turned defeat into victory and hatred into strength. Behind them, the memorial floated in silence, a monument to the dead and a warning to the living. Humanity had arrived. The galaxy would never be the same, and somewhere among the stars, the spirit of Helena Vance watched over them all, waiting to see what her children would build with the future she had given them. The future was theirs now. All they had to do was live up to it.